One is generational bridge building for emerging leaders, and it will be taking, the moderator is Victory Oluwasegun, the CIO of Jamboro and CEO, co-founder of Springport Technologies. He will be taking the panelists through this session, and I'm looking forward to it because there's so much to learn. So please, Victory Oluwasegun, take over.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to some, and of course, good evening to others. Can we just get a confirmation that I am being heard correctly?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Wonderful. So, as you said, my name is Victory Yemi Oluwasegun, and I'm taking today's panel, and the topic for today is going to be generational bridge building for emerging leaders and entrepreneurs. I think it was very appropriate to have Denise Cortez Kieser actually outlay what the agreement between all the countries in Africa are doing right now. And with that trade agreement being in place, next thing that comes to mind is, what do we do with that trade agreement? How do we monetize it? How do we make it functional? How do we benefit from it as entrepreneurs? And how do we benefit from it as members in diaspora? How do we, and of course, our brothers and sisters back in Africa itself? How does that all work? Well, some of us have waited to now to take action, and some of us took action a little bit earlier. Just by way of introduction, I am the current CIO of Jamboro, and we decided to take action a few years ago, and we did so because of a few reasons. And here's one of the major reasons we did. I think it was mentioned earlier today. One of our focuses is women empowerment and grassroots, because the truth of the matter is 80% of African GDP comes from that same sector, from the SME and from grassroots economies. 65% of that comes from women in grassroots, and they are actually the biggest employers in sub-Saharan Africa. With that being said, they needed a platform with which their message can be heard, where there can be something else done to that sector of the economy. And for that reason, we at Jamboro decided to build Africa's first B2B AI and blockchain-driven fintech platform. And it's focused on that financial inclusion for that grassroots empowerment. You see, we believe that it's the importance of financial services, financial inclusion services to the unbanked, to the grassroots population. This is where we will make the biggest difference, because providing access to financial services is one of the biggest dire needs that we have today. So we've heard from individuals says, yeah, there's money out there. There's plenty of money to service. However, how does that money get to the grassroots? How do we make that transition? And that's where we're going to be. That's the part that I have taken up. And today we're going to be talking to other individuals to see what their thoughts on similar topic, on bridging that generational gap, that generational bridge building, as we call it. So today we're going to have members of our panel. We have Josephine Abeko. And as I'm calling you, I hope that you guys are chiming in. Josephine Abeko, she's the wonderful, welcome. She's the climate justice and sustainability business development professional. Dayo Israel, who is a permanent board member of the Lagos State Universal Basic Education Board. We also have Gifty Agbuyi, Deputy Executive Director, National Service Scheme in Ghana. And of course, we have Lara Abiana, Director of Partnerships and Advancements, Baobab Consulting. So from this list of panelists, I'm hoping to gain a better understanding of how we take this generational bridge building and empower the leaders that are coming up around us and the entrepreneurs in the country, not just in Africa, but also around the world, because everybody's taking a look at how would they impact this environment. We have just about an hour to go over this information, and there's quite a bit to go over. So without any further ado, can we just have those who are present signify by giving a brief introduction of themselves? Can we start with Josephine Abeko?
Hello, everyone. Good evening from here and good day wherever you are. My name is Josephine Agbeko. I work in sustainable development, so work with businesses to support them improve on their social and environmental performance. I also work in climate justice planning, so thinking around what risks climate change is presenting to our communities and how we can come together to design programs that deliver goals or deliver outcomes that are profitable or that are resilient to our communities. I'm excited to be here. First of all, thank you, Dr. Dele, and your team for putting together this really important event, regardless of everything that's happening all over the world. So kudos to you and the team. I'm excited to be here to talk about this topic. Hello to Madam Gifty Aboaje, who is doing really amazing work with youth in Ghana. Bridging the gap, building skills and creating a path to development for young people. So that's really amazing. This would be a brief introduction to myself, Victory.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I can't wait to get into some of this with you. Lara, would you kindly introduce, as if we don't know who you are by now?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. For a full introduction, my name is Lara Ebiona. I am the Director of Partnerships and Advancement at Baobab Consulting. So the company, it is an Africa-focused social impact firm that offers world-class services in strategic communications, strategic advisory and research, and intercultural programming. So with a diverse team of experienced consultants that are remotely based in 7 countries across 3 continents, Baobab Consulting, we have built a reputation as expert cross-cultural communicators who utilize digital media, training, and research to promote equitable international collaboration in business, politics, social advocacy, and education. So what I look forward to digging into with the panel is looking at the connection between intercultural collaboration and intercultural bridge building and intergenerational bridge building. They're very similar in the sense that different generations, there are cultural gaps that need to be overcome. And the amount of work that is needed to overcome that is very similar to the work that it takes to acquire intercultural competency. So I look forward to digging into this topic with everyone and sharing a bit more about what Baobab does and looking for ways that we can all work together.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I have a few questions of my own, and I'm just going to use a couple of questions just to get us kicked off, because I want to kind of direct the information so we can have the maximum impact on the audience that we have today, and for those who might listen to the recording later. So just for the record, in a few minutes, Josephine, can you tell me what do you view as a generational bridge building? What is that?
Thanks, Victory, for the question. Generational bridge building is basically the action that we put into ensuring that we draw connections between the various groups of people, the various ages of people, the various experienced groups of people, generations, if you could call it that, drawing those connections, ensuring that we're maintaining knowledge, and maintaining and improving knowledge across generations. I know that as it is currently, the world of work has about 4 to 5 generations currently in the world of work, and it almost immediately shows you how much institutional knowledge or how much generational knowledge is embedded first within each particular group of particular generation, but also lets you know the prospects that are there for coordinating knowledge sharing, coordinating development, and the gaps or the losses that would occur if we don't take action to ensure that we're passing knowledge all through and we're supporting people to grow and building on knowledge that has already been built. So this is what generational bridge building is to me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. I think you're actually right. Bridging that gap between the generations is going to be key. how we do it, and what issues cause the revolution to take place, so to speak, is going to be interesting. I think some of the issues we've already faced in the recent past, not even over yet, as a matter of fact, would lend itself to that as well. But I don't want to go to the all the way to that side just yet. Just follow with me. You know, speaking on these issues though, in your sense, is this a global issue? Is it cultural? Is it local? I know you touched on it a little bit, but give me a better sense of, you know, is it the same thing around the world, or is Africa just so different from the rest of the world that, you know, it doesn't matter? Is it continent to continent? What are your thoughts, Josephine?
I think essentially the challenges are the same. Essentially, you'd find the same things across the world. So in Europe, in America, in Africa, in Asia, you find those same challenges. The difference would be that it manifests differently in country, or it manifests differently based on the culture that is present. And so, for instance, you would have an older generation that likes to do things really quickly, or likes to just listen to an order and go on to do the work. And you have a younger generation that would constantly ask why. So in Asia, they're asking why. In Africa, we're asking why. In Europe, they're asking why. So the whys may manifest as different actions. So how we ask why may be different, but essentially we want to know why, or young people want to know why, as opposed to another generation that would be more comfortable with just doing what they know is right, or doing what has been said. So that's a difference. So I think that it's the same everywhere. It just manifests differently in different places, but essentially it's the same thing.
Awesome. Well, I actually agree with you as well. It is the same thing everywhere else. You're right. We young people have to take a position that why are we doing what we do? It's not what we do that matters. It's why we're doing it.
Exactly.
Because the principles of the principles of the issues that we have to deal with on a daily basis, it's what drives our motivation.
Exactly.
There's been a lot of talk about policies. There's been a lot of talk about forming committees. There's been a lot of talk about, you know, all of these things, but at the root of the matter, how do we get those things resolved? Is it really achievable? Is a seamless bridge building, is that possible? Lara, do you think it's possible?
So I think, so that word seamless, that's very interesting. I hope that it will be at some point seamless, but I think right now there is active work that needs to be done on both sides in order to bridge these gaps. There is a need to, I guess, embrace and accept the unknown from both sides. And I know, I guess I know we probably wanted to, I guess, wait a bit before bringing in EndSARS, because, you know, that's the example that's most at the forefront of my mind. But I do want to chime in, just because that, like, for me, that rings true with, and even just going off of what you were saying, Josephine, like, we young people were asking why, but I would even say, you know, even going further than that, we're also ready, if the older generation isn't ready to give the answer, we will come forward and present the answer as well, in a way that is best serving to us and to our futures. And I think with EndSARS, I saw someone on the LinkedIn, I forget their name, but they made a very excellent point in saying how there is a connection between our parents and an older generation kind of misunderstanding and underestimating how we use technology. And, you know, just assuming that, you know, like, we're wasting time, you know, pressing our phones, you know, but not understanding that, you know, through this technology, we are building empires, we're building brands, we're creating solutions, we're changing the world. And I think there is a connection. The fact that, you know, some of the main points of harassment from SARS is, you know, targeting those that have iPhones, that have laptops, because the assumption is if they have those things, you know, they are involved in some, you know, crime. So you know, yes, there's the violence in and of itself, but that violence starts from a lack of understanding between generations. And as a result, you know, the violence in and of itself and the fact that people are being targeted as a whole is already sad. But the fact that they are targeting, you know, the people that are invested in, you know, like making the country better, you know, like for years, for decades, we've been talking about, you know, the brain drain, people going overseas, you know, but the brains that are right there, you're killing them, you're harming them as well. So when there is an intergenerational bridge building, it can actually be dangerous, and it can be borderline self-destructive to a country. So I would say that while I wish it was seamless, it's at this time, it will take a lot of work, but it is absolutely urgent.
Yep.
Wow.
And
wow.
if I could...
Sure, by all means, go right ahead.
If I could build on Lara's point as well, I mean, seamlessness is something we can look forward to in the future, but of course now would need to put in the work to ensure that the action is actually there to back the things that we say. What's really interesting about these conversations we're having is that oftentimes both the younger generation and the older generation want the same things.
Yes.
So we want peace, we want good governance, we want our businesses to do well, we want generational success, we want good education and all things like that. It's just, we take different approaches to doing that. And there seems to be a disconnect between what I think, what the older generation would think is a good approach or is the best approach to reaching a goal versus what the younger generation would think is the best approach. So that sort of disconnect is where the issue is, and then where we need to create the discourse around to seeing, well, we want the same things. How do we get there together? How do we create dialogue? We want relationships. We want good employment, we want good remuneration. We want similar things, more or less. So then how can we come to the point where we understand that we're one and the same people, we have similar interests? How do we chart our path toward that particular interest? I think that's where the conversation needs to be driven a lot more.
Okay. So I'll take that, and I'll raise you this, because I think this seamless word has now created something that we really need to delve into a little bit further, because it's a word that signifies that there is no issue. It's easy, right? It's seamless. It just happens, by chance. And we know for a fact it doesn't happen by chance. Actually, it happens because of efforts being put forth. So I'm gonna throw another word in there. I'm gonna throw this in there. It's called emotional interrupt. Until someone has an emotional interrupt, they don't realize the impact of what they're doing. But before we discuss the emotional interrupt that EndSARS has created, let's give me the benefits. Why are we doing this? What's the benefit of having a seamless environment? Give me, both of you, the questions to both of you, give me two or more benefits of having a generation building, a bridge building exercise. In my mind, I envision, and I'm not trying to pollute your thoughts right here, but let me back up and say it this way. Let me say it this way. Dr. Remy, thank you very much for putting this together, because this global summit is on the cusp of changing a lot of different things. I can easily see this going country to country in Africa and across the world to our diaspora and brothers and sisters, because this conversation needs to be had. What do we do against the next generation? How do we bridge that gap and bring it in? So this discussion right here between the three of us, as the world listens on, I want you guys to really tell me, what are we going to do? Because Dr. Remy is going to take this and plow the world with that information. And I want to make sure that they're getting the benefits of it. So what are the benefits of doing this generational bridge building exercise? Why should we do it?
Could I start?
By all means, Lara, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. I think one of the benefits, because I think sometimes when you have misunderstanding at the beginning, sometimes if that misunderstanding has gone on for long enough, it can breed hopelessness, it can breed resentment. But I think exactly as you were saying, Josephine, the fact that you know, they're the same goals, different approaches. If we're able to have a conversation and at least see that we're trying to do the same thing, that might bring forward a path for that connection, for that bridge building. And there might even be more acceptance and more openness and, you know, a bit more of, you know, whether it's full understanding or even understanding or acknowledging what we won't understand, but still respecting it. And I think that there is hope for walking away from the conversation with, you know, more respect for the youth, and then also, you know, more compassion towards older generations. So I think that I guess one of the benefits is that, you know, if we go into this exercise and there is the space for that dialogue to really happen and to be effective, then it could reap, you know, better outcomes. And I think when you continue to, when it's more than just, you know, like a one-time thing, when it's continuum, when you're continuing to just pull back each layer of, you know, misunderstanding, and that compassion is growing, then you see that, you know, even with that same, you know, fire and that same commitment that you have, that we find more and more people from older generations that, you know, we don't, you know, need to go out of our way to convince, but are more, you know, organically led to ally and to support and to partner with us. So I guess that's probably where the seamless part comes in. When it's progressive, when it's consistent, when we are continuing to have that conversation and continuing to take that risk to explore the unknown on the other side.
All right, let me give you guys a little bit of history, because one of the things I found out is that history repeats itself, and sometimes it comes out in ways you don't know. So an example of what you're talking about is individuals in diaspora. We've always been asked, come back home, come back home, come back home. And we always ask the question, to what? What are we coming back home to? So we wanted to, so over the years, right, they have set up this conversation, and the exercise has been done. And what most countries have set up, states, governments, is offices of diaspora. As a matter of fact, Dr. Remy led one of those offices of diaspora. So she's well equipped to actually handle this matter. Now, it's kind of funny that we're having this conversation, because that's exactly what's going to have to happen again now. We're going to have some kind of office whereby we can have the relations between the younger generation and the older generation. That misunderstanding is called a business analyst. Okay? It's called I'm a technologist, right? And my business analysts always have to come and interpret what the users want so that the technologists can provide solutions, right? So this is the same thing, different dance, in my opinion. And really, this dance, this time around, is going to be something that we need to be repeatable. So I could go on, but here's one of the thoughts I want you guys to keep in mind.
Yep.
As you're talking, bring solutions. Don't give me problems without solutions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So let's have the discussion. And how do we solve this problem? You know what? Let's get into this, SARS. Let's do that, because it's been something that plagued the world. All around the world, everybody was watching, and both you know, individuals that didn't know and people that did know all commented. You guys know what happened. From your point of view, what is there a way that both generations can work together to bring about a Nigeria where all, or even other African nations, can benefit from seeing what is happening? Nigeria being the size that it is in population wise, everybody's watching. So talk to me. What's up, Josephine?
Yes, I'd like to give 2 reasons why working together is important, and then maybe Lara can go into the answers, as that's more of her context. So she starts, and then I support with that. In my opinion, and in my experience as well, working together with different groups of generations, it does 2 things. First, you avoid the waste of resource, reinventing wheels, right? So something has been done before. Because you missed that knowledge base, then you think you need to start from scratch, use capital resource, human resource, physical resource to do everything all over again. That's a lot of waste in a world where resources are limited. That's something you don't want to do. And so working together with the older generation and even with younger generations is an opportunity to not reinvent wheels, but to build on things that have been done. So it could be technology, different types of innovation, and to do it well or improve on them. That's one thing. The other thing is also the opportunity to work with diversity. There's obviously experiences and skills that the older generation have that we do not have, and would take us 10, 15 years to get those. So imagine working with someone like Dr. Dile, imagine working with Kemi, with you guys, and you're all bringing in the knowledge you have, the experiences you have into a space where we are respecting each and every one of you's your experiences and your contributions. So imagine how
I
far.
get scared from the thought, man. Someone else had
Would
it.
you kindly, if anybody's out there, could you kindly mute yourself if you're not
I don't want to have to start. See, I could go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
it's funny.
it.
It's funny that you should. What is it saying? If I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, right? And that right there should be a hashtag. If I knew
Exactly.
now, if I knew then what I know now, because right now we are looking at a new generation that wants to do better, that wants to come in and step into leadership, that's not afraid to step into leadership. The technology that you mentioned, and I'm gonna yield the floor back to you, but I want to emphasize a couple of points that you mentioned right now. So technology is an accelerator. That's all it is.
Yes.
It's not meant to take over the world. It can only do what you tell it to do.
Right.
But as we accelerate the timeline, because I've heard oftentimes, well, it took us 10 years. They want to just jump. They want to jump the line. No, it's called progress.
Yes.
It's called change. And change is always going to be an emotional interrupt that's going to affect people's feelings, affect people's judgment, affect people's the way they wake up in the morning, right? You wake up on the wrong side of the bed and all of a sudden you have a crick in your neck and the whole day goes awry. So that's not what we want. We want to be able to say the change is coming and let's facilitate the change. And by facilitating the change through technology, through other means, right now, this conference was supposed to be in person in Dubai. We're having a global summit at home, right? So we are all international speakers now from home,
Yep.
but that's the world we live in. So Josephine, please complete your thoughts. I'm curious to see how you end this.
Yes. So my second thought was just the pleasure. The pleasure of diversity, of working together with different people, old and young, where they bring amazing skill, amazing talent, amazing experience, but also in the space where bear in mind that these things are valued and respected. Because I said earlier that one of the things that are similar, or every one of us wants, is respect. Everyone of us wants to be valued and appreciated. And so the conflicts that would often happen between the older generation and the younger would be that oftentimes the younger generation doesn't feel, or we don't feel valued or appreciated by the older generation, which is it might sound very minuscule, but is a cause of lots of conflicts at the workplace and the house and the communities. This is a source of conflict. And so coming into a space where we respect the diversity that's present, we value the diversity that's present, and we find a way to create synergies or synchronicity between all these options that we have, I feel is a very important outcome of creating that intergenerational linkage or intergenerational bridge. I'll end here so Lara can go on about EndSAR's really important protest and movement.
Okay, so Lara, maybe you'll take this question since she says she wants to end now.
Okay.
You mentioned something just now, the value, respect and value. Do you know what that actually means? It's the traditions. Our traditions that we have brought along over the years. We didn't write a lot of traditions down. What we did is we told it at the campfire. We told it in the village square. That's where we had conversation about our ancestors. And
Mhm.
now you're saying we don't do that anymore? You want to change all of that and you want us to do it over Zoom? It's affecting people's tradition, and that's what's messing with people's emotional content. So their EQ is being disrupted on a daily basis, and they're looking at you guys saying, "Stop! Don't do this." And how did they say stop? They start harassing you. Well, you're not supposed to have that. You're not even old enough to drive. How do you have a car of that magnitude? Oh, because I'm an investor. I learned, the way my bank account is set up. My mother taught me, and then my father taught me, and then my uncles taught me, and they decided that they want to push me forward. Not after 15 years in the workplace, they decided let him go when he's ready, and he was ready at 15. He was ready at 21. They're ready at 25. They're taking on the world at 25, and there's no reason why they shouldn't. Mark Zuckerberg did it, right? He did it. So why can't we do that? Do you guys know, and I'm going to turn it over to you with this, the youngest paid educator, is 10 years old, Nigerian, London. She's
Yes.
10 years old. She's actually being paid to teach her peers. So what are you saying now? How does that change the equation? Because before we didn't know about all these things. The world wasn't so wide open. We couldn't see. But now the world is looking at us. The world is in this discussion. So from a world's perspective, so Lara, the question to you is, from a world's perspective, how does NSARS affect the world? Not just Nigeria, because I don't want to pigeonhole us to just that one country, because it is just one country. We're talking about the continent. We're talking about the world at large. We're all affected. Give us some education, please.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, I think it's really, it comes down to how we support and how we endorse the progressive voices in our individual countries. And as we said, it's not just NSARS. There's been so many movements, throughout, I would say, throughout the past, like maybe like 5 years, or just there's been a lot going on, like all around the world, where those that have been rising up to make progressive claims, to push for a better future, to take hold of their future, especially those that are young, have been met with pushback that is especially violent, and even seeing, counter movements and seeing, very extremist views. So it is very important that, those that are, that have, progressive views from our perspective are, just common sense and just based on, decency and promoting, general welfare, are able to thrive and are able to have support, as it is deserved. And, there are those that have, made their very clear stances, against us and an intention to harm. And that is, it is very sad. But we know that it is not everyone. And I think there are also ways for the older generation to even draw from, from our own culture and from our own traditions, about how, at the end of the day, when it comes to respect, intergenerational respect, and that expected, level of trust and authority that is given to elders, it's because there is this assumed idea, and I'd say that this spans across, not even just Nigeria, across the continent, that adults take a certain level of responsibility and a certain level of interest in seeing the youth, seeing youth, surpass them. And I think that's something that we need to see. I think, and we need to see it like even more loudly, because, yes, you might have, while, for every, like perhaps like, adult that I might encounter, my own culture, where there is some, like double standard of respect, where they don't respect me but expect me to respect them. There are also those that see me as a young person and believe that there is just, even if they don't know me that well, just feel like a responsibility to empower me and to see me achieve all I can achieve. And that is something that's part of our culture. And I think that's something that, even as we are moving into new times, it's something that we can lean into. And that's something that would be very essential. And I think just in terms of, proposed solutions, You know, we need to see like the young people that have been out here in the streets, you know, that have been organizing, like the women, you know, the youth, you know, they need to have the support to get into office, you know. And I think that there is room for the older generation to support and to endorse endeavors for those that are young, those that are qualified to take different leadership positions in the country, you know, whether it's, you know, governor, whether it's in the Senate, whether it's in different places, you know, like that it can't just be, you know, it can't continue to be, you know, this idealistic idea for a young person to be in leadership in their own country, you know, like
it's funny you should mention that. I have a quick story. This happened a couple of days ago, even as early as yesterday. We happen to have a young lady that's head of our investor relations. Her name is Velma, and Velma went for an investor relations meeting. She gets there only for the gentleman to say, I don't know, are you supposed to be here? How old are you?
Yikes.
And I was like, wow, that's what he said? Did not mention why so he started to bombard her with questions about what we do about financial inclusion, what's the GDP related ratio. So he went into all these questions trying to, you know, trip her up, and she nailed each and every one of those questions.
And that's the thing with
nothing else
stereotypes, Victory.
What's that?
That's the thing with stereotypes.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the things we, both older generation and younger generation, need to be conscious of. Because sometimes we go into life or we go into society with stereotypes about, oh, this is how Gen Z is. This is how millennials are. This is how this older generation of people are. So even without trying to know them as individuals or know them for who they are, we come to them with that veil of stereotypes. So, oh, these guys only know tech. They have no moral values. They have no principles. They can't be leaders and stuff like that. So it's great, the story that you just shared. And it's something that we have, I'm sure we've each experienced with the older people amongst us now and listening to us, and the younger people. You go into meetings or you interact with people and there's just an assumption around how you're supposed to be versus who you actually are, and people treat you or want to treat you based on that notion that they have. So there's a lot of work, mental work around that as well, disabling, disengaging those notions and getting to know people for who they are, giving people the benefit of the doubt to be able to deliver what they say they'll deliver and all that. So stereotypes and categorizations generally have proven to be unhelpful. I mean, in some cases, they let you go through life quite easily, because if you know how a group of people behave, you're able to navigate your way. But then very realistically, we need to begin to have a rethink about how we do stereotypes, or if we should do stereotypes at all.
So let me ask you this. There's something that a word that we haven't mentioned that much in this conversation. I thought we might have mentioned a few more times. So let me go ahead and throw that word out there. That's mentorship. Okay, mentorship is something that I'm pretty big on. I've always been able to have that interaction between the younger generation and the older generation on both sides of the coin. And what I've found that the moment you think you don't need a mentor is the moment you fail in life. And I'm talking about, I don't care how old you are, what industry you're in, I don't care whatever you're doing. And I think because of that, that's something that I experienced myself. Okay, so at the point where a young person is saying something as a point of authority, the older generation starts to say, wait a minute, what gives her the infantry to think like that, right? The question I ask the person is, how did you learn that information? How are you validating that information? I'm not saying it in the sense that you're not supposed to have it. I'm saying, like, share with me so that I may be able to further understand this perspective, because I'm always curious to see from my mentors, be it my financial mentor or whatever the case may be, how did you get to that line of thought? because that line of thought is powerful. What you're saying right now, Josephine, is powerful. Lara, you guys are going in and giving me a different perspective on how we should look at this whole thing. I'll say this one last thing, and I'm gonna ask a different question. When someone says to you that, or better yet, so you guys have NSARS over there. Over here in the US, we have Black Lives Matter, right? So different progressive movements for different reasons. But one of the examples that was given that touched me the most was this. The guy says, "Hey, my house is burning down," and says, "Neighbor, come and help me put the fire out in my house." Neighbor says, "Well, all the houses matter in the block." Okay, yeah, I know all house matters, but my house is the one that's burning. So can we sort out this problem first? Can you help me with this problem so we can have a better solution so that it doesn't affect turn around? Because if my house burns down, eventually your house will burn down, right? And the same thing applies with this generational gap. If we do not solve the problems that we have in leadership today, it will eventually burn the entire house down. So I'm encouraging all youths to step forward and say, hey, before this house burns down, before I get an opportunity to lend my voice to this, to give it any credence, can you guys listen? Give me a second. So so the question now is, how do we ask for that moment in time? How would you ask for a moment in time? What would be the approach to say, I need a minute for you guys to listen to what it is that I have to say? Yep. Who wants to go first?
I will. I can. Okay. Thanks for raising the topic on mentorship. I personally am particularly high on mentorship as well, both seeking or relating with more experienced or more knowledgeable people, but also supporting younger people that are going in a line that I've been in a lane that I've been through before. And what I realized, at least in the last 2 to 3 years, is the world as it is now doesn't give things, and you've got to take things. You've got to ask, you've got to try to open doors, you've got to try to access things, and then people see the efforts that you put in and can support or lend a hand or whatever else it is that people do to support. And so for a lot of young people now, the onus lies on us. I mean, the older generation has somewhat to do as well, but for us, because there's a lot at stake for us, then the onus lies on us to begin to make those moves, take those steps, be bold to say, look, I need help in so area. This is how my business is performing. I need to be able to push it to this level. In 3 years, I need a mentor. This is how I'm performing academically. I want to be a professor, so I need a mentor. And so begin to identify those gaps in our lives personally where we need mentorship or we need support, and be able to identify who the key people are within our networks, or even these days, go beyond your networks, go outside of your networks and begin to knock on those doors, begin to, on LinkedIn, they'll say in-mail people or cold mail people, begin to, put in that effort and let people see that there's a need that they can support with, and then they're able to provide that support. Because to be honest, if you do not ask, you don't get, as we all know, and there's not so much to lose with asking. And the other thing that goes hand in hand with asking is also being able to communicate what you want in a way that whoever you're asking acknowledges the need and is able to provide support. So if you come up to someone and say, I need mentorship, they're less likely to engage with you than if you come up to say, I'm trying to get to point B, I'm here, these are the resources I have, what do you think? And then you're asking the really critical questions that help people support you to
grab their attention.
Exactly, to grab their attention and go on that journey. So it's to seek mentorship, but also seek it in a way that is providing value to yourself, but providing value to whoever is interested in mentoring you as well. I think that's a way that we can begin to close that intergenerational gap.
Okay. Okay. So with that being said, then let's look at it from a different perspective. So we talked about it from youths and to the adults, but let's bring it home. Let's wrap some substance around it. So there's financial inclusion, right? I'm sorry. There's inclusion and diversity. They play a key role in a good workplace. So let's take it from that point, from that perspective. What tips can you share that will foster good relations between employees and employers? Based on your background in business as a business development professional, how will we get that gap to close in the workplace so that when we all attend the same meeting, right? We all come to the meeting, and I'm expected to take instructions from someone younger than me. How does that work? Give me some tips, and so that I'll be able to accept it in a manner that that will give us some more progress as a company.
That's for me.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. Sorry, I lost, my laptop had died, so now I'm on my phone. So you
Awesome.
can see the background now, but
Phones work too. Phones are great. Technology, right?
yeah. So I'll say this, and I think that's I guess just from working at Baobab Consulting is something that I've really appreciated, that it's a space that is very, very safe to ask questions, to give feedback, and to have conversations that may not be 100% comfortable. So I think that with diversity, inclusion, it's so much more than meeting a quota. Because if you have the people that are diverse, and all of the responsibility of calling out the culture is put on them, then that puts them in a position where it's like, okay, I don't want to call something out and then have that reflected on my performance review, and and all of these other negative impacts that can affect my own career development. So then that would put the people of color in the position where they're just trying to do their best to just survive within the environment, and then it isn't like things don't change as much. But I think what is most essential is that the company culture makes it very clear that they can be held accountable internally for doing the right thing, and that there's always room to have for feedback from anyone, even if it's someone younger, or even if it's someone in a different position, that at the end of the day, it's all about ensuring the success of the company. And sometimes that might mean hearing an opinion from someone else that might shape the strategy in a direction that you may not have originally thought of, but it incorporates important points that would lead the company to be better as a whole. So I think overall, in any effort for diversity and inclusion and equity, there needs to be some element of a genuine commitment to having uncomfortable conversations, and a genuine commitment for leaders to be open to being held accountable, without being without having any fear of any disciplinary action or anything like that. So I'd say that is very important, that willingness to be uncomfortable, and that also connects in general with intergenerational bridge building, that willingness to be uncomfortable.
All right, so we should all get ready to get uncomfortable. So
yes.
Sure, let's go ahead and do that. Let's change the world. Let's get uncomfortable, because that's what you're right. That's exactly what it's going to take. I like your point about company culture, because I believe the culture that's presented is what's going to allow your employees to thrive. If they're not thriving, it's because you're not given an enabling environment. So the environment that you create is what's going to have them engage and not fear that whatever I say is going to be held against me for the rest of my tenure at this place of employment. Whatever I do is not going to be tantamount to being fired the next day because I have an opinion opposite of what the company's opinion might be. It's just that understanding. How do we stay in? At work, typically they say don't talk about politics. Don't talk about politics. And as an individual, that may be a career goal for you. You might, you studying political science and you want your coworker's opinion on something, and next thing you know, it's like, nope, nope. They're written up for some disciplinary action. So the culture, enabling culture is very important.
Yep.
Josephine, want to add anything to that before I ask my next question?
I do, yes. I'd add that a culture of continuous learning is also very critical in spaces where there's different generations of people, because when you manage to create that culture of continuous learning and people know that within this space no question is too stupid, sorry to say, and you're able to present yourself fully and wholly in a space where you're continuously learning, and you know that each person has something that you can learn from, then it sort of disables that mentality of I'm the oldest, so I cannot learn from the youngest. Because if everyone is there to learn, then we're all there to learn. And we would learn from whoever has the most superior knowledge at that point. So we can go with that. The other thing is also, especially for business managers or entrepreneurs, to be able to create a system of growth or a workplace of growth where employees know that there's consistent growth, there's constant growth, but also creating a space where there are interesting experiences for the workforce. And it's not just interesting experiences in terms of people being bored of doing work, but interesting experiences in terms of relating that to the interests of people. So for instance, you mentioned if you have interest in political science, then is it possible to engage that interest that you have? So apart from you working on tech and building tech, is there a way to connect your interest in political science with tech and innovation, or is there a way to connect someone's interest in media engagement or media management with tech and innovation, things like that? So being able to engender that space where you're creating these interesting relationships and people can grow, because that's something that would keep coming back to both the older generation and the younger generation. That's something would keep coming back to. Is this experience growing me? Is this experience growing me? And for me, it's a question I keep asking myself regardless of where I am. So after every 3 months, I'll think, well, I've been here for a while. Do I feel like I've become a better person? And true, do I feel like I become a better person? And then begin to reassess those actions and decisions. So I think these are also important for building that workplace where intergenerational bridge building is engendered.
Wow. I'm laughing because you said after I've been here for 3 months, I want to do an assessment. And typically assessment is done what after a year. You have to be a year before you do that self-evaluation. And you're now saying no, 3 months. If I've been here 3 months, that's plenty of time for me to know whether or not I'm going to acclimate myself, whether I'm going to sit still, or whether I'm going to move on. So one of the things that you always have to keep in mind, especially when dealing with management is looking for longevity. Whereas most of the young people, they're looking for variety. They're looking for challenge. And at the moment you stop challenging them, they're ready to do something else. So creating enabling environments, like I said earlier, might just be something that could bridge that gap a little bit faster, and allowing individuals who have a propensity to grow fast to lead that charge. After 3 months, you want it different? Oh yeah, then I think you should be the head of something. Head of diversity on project management. So there's always going to be opportunity for growth. It's how creative are you going to be allowed to express yourself, and to what degree you're going to be allowed to express yourself. So
May I interject, please, just in
Yes,
response?
I was just about to. I saw your finger. It was the finger from the chat room, right? Yeah, I got it. I saw it. So yes, by all means, come in.
Yeah, no, because I think that's very interesting. And that 3-month assessment, I mean, if we're honest, most companies, they have a certain probationary period at the beginning anyway, whether they formally say so or not. So some it might be, 6 weeks, some it might be the 3 months, some it might be, 6 months even. And so I think in the same way, we don't need to, come into, a space of like, okay, from the beginning, let me, be I mean, yes, we should, be, 100% committed, to what we said we would do in our jobs. But I think, mentally, we should still, just be assessing, looking around, and just kind of getting a sense of the culture and thinking like, okay, does this organization, have they, deserved that, like, do they deserve that loyalty from me, like beyond the 3 months, like after, assessing everything, that assessment might not even lead to an immediate exit. It might be like, okay, this is a place I want to be at for a year. This is a place I want to be at for 2 years. In those 2 years, I want to do X, Y, and Z. So I think 3 months is more like how I see it. I think that it's an opportunity to, at this point, it's like, okay, the honeymoon phase has finished, and I'm starting to get, a sense of, what the organization is, what the role entails, and I'm ready to, make a decision about my future in the same way that, behind the scenes, they're making a decision about, my future here as well. So I think it is good. I think it is a good thing, and I agree with Josephine in that.
All right, and with that being said, we're going to move on to Q&A, because I think there's going to be some questions out there. The chat room is buzzing, and there have been some questions posed. So I'm going to ask you for your final thoughts in a minute, but until then, let's check out some of these questions. So one of the questions here, let's see, financial inclusion, right? So that goes up and down the stack. What initiatives do we have to complement this drive across generations, genders, cultures, and the like? What do you guys think?
This is a fully borrowed question. Thanks for asking. And I think there are different approaches. I'm just going to speak to what I know in my circles is happening. So I know a lot more these days. There's been interest in young people establishing businesses and young entrepreneurs and young leaders and stuff like that. So I know there's some investment. It may not necessarily be financial, which is like handing out cash, but there's some other types of investment in young people to support them to build their businesses, but also to create formalized mentoring relationships between young people and older people. I had a conversation with a farmer, an agribusiness man, not too long ago, and he was telling me about another agribusinessman that had been in the business for 30 years. He's like, look, Joe, this man has been in the business for 30 years. There's no way I'm going to compete with him. I just need to get close to him and learn how he's been able, especially in this ecosystem that we have, how has he been able to make his business thrive and things like that. And quite interestingly, this 30-year-old business, I know that is on a program that supports young businesses. So that kind of generational bridge building where they're bringing established businesses or established leaders to support young people's growth and development. I know that these are some initiatives that are happening in my ecosystem, which is Ghana.
Which is Ghana, okay. Well, I mean, we've heard a lot from the two of you guys. You guys have poured your heart out. I want somebody else to answer. Is Dayo still there? Dayo, Israel, are you out there somewhere in the world? Can we hear your voice by chance?
Sorry, yes, I'm here. Hi. Sorry, I'm just driving home, but it's fine. Good evening.
Oh yes, I can see you.
Forgive me.
No problem. So, you know about the topic of today. Can you, in a summary message? We just may not be able to do this. Are you still there?
Your question.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right.
You were saying?
I was asking, could you by chance give me a summary message to the world from your perspective on generational bridge building and how
Thank
we.
you so much. First, I want to commend Auntie Remi Duile for putting this event together. I participated yesterday, and I know that it's been very insightful interaction over the last few days. It's something that is needed at a time like this. As a matter of fact, this is part of the intergenerational collaboration and synergy that we're talking about, where the young and the olds are able to come and express the ideas about the future and where we think that the world should go. It is important to understand that. Let me start from an African proverb that says, "Owo ọmọdé ò tó pẹpẹ," and the conclusion says, "Àgbàlagbà kò wọ akèrègbè." What it means is, while the hand of a child may not be able to stretch to to pick something from a tree, from a coconut tree, the same way the hand of an elder cannot enter into a calabash, because calabash will usually have a small entry hole point. In other words, what one generation has in excess and the other has in lacking, another generation also has. So during the NSYS protest that happened in Nigeria recently, we said that it was one of the things that was brandished around was that there's a generation that was silent and could tolerate the abuse of political leaders and democratic leaders, but there's a generation that is raising their voice, which is my generation, the generation that is called the Sorosoke generation, the generation that is filled with so much energy, vibrancy, innovation. We're ready to take risks, we're ready to do things differently, we're ready to innovate, we're ready to challenge the status quo. And that is the generation that we have emerging now. We usually call them emerging leaders because we're not just leaders of tomorrow, we're leaders that are already emerging, taking responsibility today. Look at most of the businesses that are thriving out of Africa, the creative industry. It takes the ideas, the uniqueness, and the energy of this generation, our generation, to be able to bring about those reforms. But the interesting part is that we can't do it alone. So while we have the strength, the energy, the creativity, we also have that generation ahead of us that has the experience, the wisdom. Many times they also have the resource. And there needs to be that collaboration for us to be able to work together to birth the future that we want to see. And for that older generation, it's important to understand that when we're talking about sustainable development and sustainability of visions and ideas, there needs to be that intergenerational synergy, because we are going to be here tomorrow to ensure. Today, I work for the governor of Lagos State. I work with the Lagos State government. I'm on the board of SUBEB. I'm a permanent board member of the Lagos State Universal Basic Education Board. So there's 6 of us with the chairman that manages basic education in Lagos State. 1,016 schools in our state, and over 500,000, over 400,000, over 470,000 pupils in our public primary school, and another, couple of thousands in our junior secondary school, but another 460 thereabout in our junior secondary school. So a couple of thousand, pupils and students, and we're responsible for managing them. One of the interesting parts is that while I'm the youngest person on the board, while we have a lot of people who are professionals, who are PhD holders on the board, I'm also able to bring the youthful energy, the youthful creativity, and a lot of perspective into the team. And the children and the people of Lagos State are benefiting from that. Because when you have young people in the midst, there's a way that we see things. Most of our father's generation and the generation ahead have been used to a lot of things. They will tolerate a lot of things because all they want is stability. But we are in a generation that is disruptive. We believe in disruption very, very strongly. And we believe that if we want to see changes, we need to
Okay, so I think he summarized quite handsomely on the different topics that we've different questions we've asked over the course of this hour. Thank you very much, Dayo, for your input, and I appreciate a few things that you said. one of which was while the youths may have the strength and the energy to carry out the mission, the wisdom, the knowledge, the know-how, it still lies in the hands of the elder statesmen. And having that collaboration between the two of them is only going to serve to benefit the whole. So but as we continue to work together in a collaborative and more collaborative spirit, we'll be able to get that agenda fulfilled. So thank you very much to all that have made themselves available for this session. Is really much well appreciated, and I think each and every one of us can do well to look back and to understand what has happened and how we can get that generational build, the build gap to dissipate and to become seamless. One of the things, just a couple of the things that were mentioned, I want to just do a quick rundown, is that we need to be more, stop reinventing the wheel every time a new person takes place, a new person is in place. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Whatever's working, let's continue to work with that and to improve upon that. To try to be more diverse in our standing against interacting and with individuals that are in place. We should value and respect those who are at the table, not asking how did you get to this table, but if they're at the table, then respect the fact that they're at the table and show them their value, their due value. Ask for support, support for the different issues and the different things that we're working on. Ask for support to make sure that's there. It can come by form of monetary support. It can come by wisdom. It can come by mentorship because we've done it. Find ourselves working in companies, create an environment, create a culture that can give us the best value for, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are giving ourselves and making ourselves available to those who are out there and doing what needs to be done to move this behemoth forward. There were a lot of great questions. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to address them as time is well spent. And the chat room, like I said, has quite a bit of dialogue there. So I ask each and every one of us to take a look at the chat box and see how you can give some of us some more information, insights. With that being said, I'd like to thank all of you for attending this session, and I'd like to bring the session to a close. I'd hand the call back over to, I believe it's Ms. Kemi. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Victory. That was really an amazing session. I think the bottom line for me in everything that has been said in this particular session that I love so much, because I was just telling Dr. Remy, that is one of my favorite sessions, is the foundation. What's the foundation? There is a gap. You can't deny that there is a gap. You can use other words for it. It doesn't change the fact that there's a gap. There's a gap between the younger generation and the older generation. So we need bridge builders. You know, that's why I'm grateful for people like Dr. Remy, Madam Toyin Sani, Didi Wuneli, Tony Epo. There are several people like that who understand the language of the youth, the present youth. The youth of today is not the same with those that we had in the 1980s, in the 1990s. The language is different. They're saying something new. And if you don't grasp what you're saying, you're going to keep having things like enough is enough, hashtag NSAS, hashtag you're not getting us, hashtag can you please understand what we're trying to say? It's going to continue that way. There's a language that has changed. And until we understand the need for this bridge, you'll keep feeling that the younger ones are rude to the older ones. Meanwhile, they're just passing the message across. You just don't understand the language that they're saying. So I hope we get more bridge builders who can help to put this connect so that when they are speaking their language, somebody's understanding. If somebody's not understanding, somebody's there to interpret. And we just trust that everything will work out fine. So thank you so much, Yemi. Thank you, Josephine. Thank you, Lara. It was an amazing session. I love it. And I pray that, you know, from our hearts and our lips to God's hearts and ears, we pray that He listens and helps us, you know, the only way that He can. Thank you so much.